All right. I'd like to start this speech off by asking you all a question. Would you rather live your life being unhappy or uncertain? Well, surprisingly enough, when asked this question, the vast majority of people chose unhappiness over uncertainty. But what is it that causes so many of us to be fearful of the unknown? Is it the fear of getting our hopes up? The fear of rejection? The fear of failure? While reflecting on this, I realized that the idea of change is often paired with uncertainty. So many of us view change through a negative lens. Yet, change is an inevitable part of life. It's something that shapes us, challenges us, and forces us to move forward through our individual journeys. Hello, Appleby students, teachers, and faculty. My name is Sanjoy Datta, and I have been privileged to serve as this year's upper school prefect. Today, I would like to explore the idea of uncertainty by sharing a few moments from my life that have shaped me into who I am today and some lessons we can all learn from it. Now, I'd like you all to take a moment and imagine yourself as a little kid from a non-religious family in Canada being dropped straight into the midst of the Bible Belt. Well, after my father got a job in Kentucky, this became my reality. As its name suggests, the Bible Belt is a region in America consisting of deeply religious and conservative states. In particular, I lived in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Missouri across 7 years. While trying my best to settle into such a vast change, I felt myself being overwhelmed with the unknown. I didn't really know what Christian or Protestant people were like, and in an effort to conform, I just dismissed my Canadian identity. And eventually, I came to learn 3 things that everyone had to abide by while living in the Bible Belt. Firstly, you had to attend church weekly, every Sunday. Secondly, you had to own a gun. And thirdly, you had to support the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, failure to do any of these would turn you into a local outcast. So, as a newly self-proclaimed American, I became a temporary Chiefs fan while living in Missouri. Now, this translated into me learning to enjoy other sports teams like the St. Louis Cardinals and create friendships with people by bonding over sports. This allowed me to look past my previously uncertain perception of what devout Christians were truly like by finding similarities with them. If I would have told myself to just stay in my comfortable bubble at home where I knew everyone and I could reliably follow the same schedule, I would have never been able to create new experiences that have changed my perception. Now, although I have repented from my past as a Chiefs fan, I learned that embracing uncertainty after this huge change brought me to enjoy something I would have never experienced. Even though the initial thought of not knowing what my life would be like in the Bible Belt scared me, I made the best of my situation by putting myself out there. And just as I'd gotten into the rhythm of my new life and worked out what the unwritten rules were, change hit me again. I found out that I was moving to Calgary, a city and a country that now seemed completely foreign to me. Now, although I'm not exactly certain on why we moved, I believe that it had something to do with my sister. After coming back home from learning how to count, my father asked her to recite the first 5 numbers. So she said, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the thickest southern accent imaginable. So, following several lessons from my father on how to actually pronounce your numbers, we were out of the Bible Belt. Moving to a seemingly new country was, again, a change that I initially resisted. I left the familiarity of my home, my neighborhood, and my friends, and replaced it with an unknown future in a place that I was 99% sure had -20-degree weather year-round. Honestly, This change was consuming my mind leading up to our move, and I was stuck living in my comfortable past. However, as days turned to weeks and weeks turned to months, I found that I could embrace Calgary's community by finding similarities with people. Living there, I learned that it was really no different than when I first moved to the Bible Belt. I still had to use an open mind and embrace the perspectives around me to make the most of my situation. Now, I'd like to pause there and just clarify what I just said. I know it sounds sort of obvious, right? I mean, of course we should have open minds and learn from the perspectives around us. But when you're comfortable with where you are, you often overlook the value in learning something new or altering your perspective, the influence of others. And in this case, only when I learned to embrace this change in my life was I able to appreciate the new opportunities that came with my new move to Calgary. Through each transition, whether it was a move to the Bible Belt or Calgary, I hope to show you all that change is not something to be fearful of, but rather an opportunity that you should take full advantage of. Now, to bring this speech a little closer to home, I'd like to talk about my experience coming here to Appleby. For those of you who don't know, I came to Appleby in October of my grade 10 year. Prior to this, I was a student at Thomas A. Blakelock, a high school just down the road on Rebecca. Now, on top of this year being especially challenging from COVID-19, I literally knew no one at Appleby, and this place seemed completely foreign to me. Now, I won't say that this change was a particularly hard and enduring challenge that I had to overcome and fight through, because I was literally moving from a public school to a much better funded private school just down the road. However, in receiving my acceptance, I still questioned whether or not this change was the right decision. Would I really benefit from starting classes partway through the year? Could I relate to the people at Appleby? Should I just stay in my comfort zone and decline this offer? In all honesty, I thought that private school kids had to be rich and preppy. So when I sent in my application, I thought that there was no way I would make it. This option came as a complete surprise and urged me to challenge my perceptions by opening my eyes to the possibilities ahead. In learning from my previous experiences, I took a shot in the dark and made the decision to come to Appleby off my intuition and the strong recommendations of my family members. My first steps onto this campus brought me yet another new environment with unfamiliar faces and traditions. With so many uncertainties of what would happen with my future at Appleby, I found that embracing the unknowns of this school allowed me to fully immerse myself in the Appleby experience. From clubs to co-curriculars to councils, each new day brought me a new opportunity to grow and explore my passions. While there were bumps along the way, this change allowed me to improve as an individual and form many new relationships with people I hope to continue talking to after graduation in a few months. And in reflecting upon my journey, I would ultimately say that uncertainty has brought me happiness. If I would have not gone through these changes and pushed myself out of my comfort zone, then I would have limited myself and who I could become. We all have a story of how we ended up here, but one thing is certain about them all. Change has brought us here, and change will continue to bring us into our futures. If we continue to look at change with fear, then we may find it difficult to embrace the unknown for the opportunities it has to offer. This may involve navigating through some uncomfortable situations, but when we see the good in change, we are able to truly grow as individuals. I'd like to highlight that change doesn't just look like moving to a new country or moving to a new school. For the upper schoolers, change may be as simple as trying a new co-curricular or club, creating new friends who you've never talked to, or starting new initiatives at Appleby. For the senior ones, many changes will occur as you begin boarding with all your friends next year and learn how to manage your schoolwork with your social life and getting used to your new schedule. For the senior twos, we will all experience many changes as we leave Appleby and move forward from our years in high school on to better things. So, to conclude my speech, I would like to leave you all with 3 things that I hope you'll keep in mind. Firstly, change is an inevitable part of life, so embrace it. This does not mean that you have to agree with or even like the change, but rather that you acknowledge it's happening and try your best to deal with it constructively. Secondly, change is something that may come without warning, so embrace it. Thirdly, always choose to be uncertain, not unhappy. Now please rise for the singing of hymn number 418.